It's about 6:50 p.m. West Coast time on Sunday, April 13th. And per a couple of court filings earlier today, Donald Trump and his administration are now openly defying the United States Supreme Court. They are saying plainly to the court that they have no obligation to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia back from the prison in El Salvador, that they only have a duty to let him into the country if the president of El Salvador, President Bukele, decides to release him. The Trump administration is saying that he's under the control of El Salvador. We don't have any control over El Salvador, so there's nothing for us to do here. That's clearly bullshit. And we've now reached the point where the President of the United States is in open defiance of an order of the United States Supreme Court. As usual, Jonathan V. Last at The Bulwark has written a very cogent piece about the current state of things and what's coming. President Bukele of El Salvador is in Washington, D.C. right now. He is going to be in the White House tomorrow, where he is going to meet Donald Trump, his political benefactor. President Bukele is the president. He's basically a dictator of a very small country in Central America, and he will do whatever Donald Trump demands that he do. And so over the next 36 hours, one of three things is going to happen. Bukele will agree to bring Abrego Garcia back to the United States, and he will insist that this was his own decision. It was his choice to do so as a token of goodwill to President Trump. Or two, President Bukele will defer the decision, saying that he has not yet made up his mind. Option three, Bukele will simply refuse to return Mr. Abrego Garcia. He will say that this is an internal matter on which American courts have no say. He will claim that Abrego Garcia is a criminal, a danger, and a threat to El Salvador, despite the fact that Mr. Abrego Garcia has never been convicted of a crime in El Salvador or the United States. If President Bukele decides to ship Mr. Abrego Garcia back to the United States, a constitutional crisis will have been postponed. And that will be the very, very first time that anybody has ever been released from this prison alive in El Salvador. If he defers and says, I haven't made up my mind yet, then it'll go back to the court to Judge Zinnes in Maryland for further proceedings. But what if he just refuses and says this is an internal matter for El Salvador, this guy's a criminal, and we're not releasing him, and the United States and its courts have no say? Again, President Bukele's only interest here is pleasing Donald Trump. And he will do whatever Donald Trump tells him to do, at which point the United States Supreme Court will face a choice: throw up its hands and surrender, or escalate the situation. They could simply not agree to hear any further proceedings on this matter and just leave it. This would be, to me, the ultimate clowning of Chief Justice John Roberts by Donald Trump. Essentially be Donald Trump telling John Roberts, you're my bitch. Maybe John Roberts goes that way. I don't know. Who knows? But if the court chooses to escalate the situation, It would mean that when the plaintiffs attempt to take Abrego Garcia's case back to SCOTUS, alleging that the administration refused to comply with the court's order, the court finds in some way that the administration did not attempt to comply, and from there make new demands of Trump and the executive branch in an attempt to gain compliance. And nobody knows where that would go because this has never happened before. But let's be clear, Kilmar Abrego Garcia will not return to the United States unless Donald Trump wants him to. The Supreme Court has the theoretical power to force the president to take some actions, but it does not have the power to compel the president's wishes. And Abrego Garcia's fate is tied to Trump's wishes. So the question is the Supreme Court willing to risk a final showdown on presidential power and authoritarianism in America at this moment? Nobody knows. The court itself is vulnerable. Its polling is in the absolute shitter. This would be an opportunity for them to stand up against an authoritarian. You know, it's nobody knows. Nobody knows because, as I said before, this has never happened before. But if the Supreme Court does nothing, and you take that cumulatively with everything else that's happened over the last 3 months, I mean, what effect or power does the Constitution of the United States have anymore? So, we're there. The president is in open defiance of the United States Supreme Court and has told them to fuck off. This is a terrifying moment for so many reasons because we are not even 3 months into his 4-year term, and the United States Supreme Court could just roll over on this. It wouldn't surprise me if they did. I hope that they don't. So we'll see what happens this week.